All right, welcome to the latest episode of Blood Money. Today we have a very special guest, Rabbi Belinsky, and I can't tell you how excited I am about this episode. If there's ever an episode of Blood Money you check out, you got to listen to this one because this is going to tie in a lot of things about corruption once the honorable rabbi tells us his story. So, Rabbi, could you just dive right into it? Tell us who you are, what you're going through, where you are today, and looking forward to hearing all you have to say.
Thank you, Ben. I appreciate being invited onto your show. My name is Rabbi Jacob Belinsky. I'm a father of 8 children. Was married for 23 years and got divorced about 10 years ago upon my now ex-spouse, her infidelity, and leaving the family for a 20-year-older man. The last 5 years, I've been embroiled in all kinds of court cases that started with one motion to modify custody of one child. I was taking care of 6 children after the divorce 10 years ago. It was stipulated that I would be the primary parent because my now ex-spouse went off and traveled the world with her newfound love, and upon her crisis of faith as well. And so I was taking care of the children for a number of years. But 5 years into it, she filed a motion to modify custody of one child. That expanded into 5 years, 5-year saga of basically me losing custody and any visitation or any contact at all with all of my younger children, with all the minor children, and has basically also alienated me from some of the children that have now aged out of the system. I was an excellent father, excellent provider, worked full-time from home, took care of the children. And unfortunately, based on that one motion, which there was no allegation of any endangerment or anything like that, but for one thing led to another. And now there's been, 6 or 7 appeals at the Colorado Court of Appeals. I filed 6 cases at the Colorado Supreme Court. I filed 7 state and federal criminal complaints. I've filed 3 federal actions in the federal courts, including 2 lawsuits that also included the defendants, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court here, Brian Boatwright, and 2 chief judges, along with another number of other judges, and my ex-spouse and her fiance, and the attorney that was involved. And now I have a number of appeals I'm still dealing with. But basically, it's been a nightmare. Not being able to see my children. I lost my home. I lost my professional career, my job that I had for almost 15 years. And so basically the system has, has kind of destroyed my life, destroyed my children's life, stolen their innocence, and have capitalized on my family as if my children are money bags, and as if we have no rights at all. My constitutional rights have been violated over and over and over again, and all of my documentation is available online for anyone to see. I'm an open book. Everything I say is the truth. I'm a rabbi. It's very important to me. And so with that, hopefully that's a good introduction, Vem.
Yeah. I mean, it's insane. What's insane to me is that this is happening to a rabbi now. And what you're talking about, we've heard over and over again. This is a problem. And by the way, on the America Happens Network, we produce multiple documentaries, podcasts. In fact, the first episode of Blood Money is about how a gentleman in the United Kingdom, because he's protesting family law corruption, the criminal syndicate of family law, MI5 busted down his door, arrested him under terrorism charges, interrogated him, kept him indefinitely, all because he was basically practicing his rightful, his rights of protesting against something that he thinks is wrong with the government. Now, you've had similar experiences in that it seems as though you are being hunted down. Take us through that story. Take us through what's been happening in terms of them trying to limit your speech and criminalize you.
Yes. So as far as the criminalization goes, this is actually outlined in in my state and federal criminal complaints, this false criminalization. I was basically hunted down and arrested for a forward text message, have daughter call me, message I sent to my ex-spouse during the Jewish high holidays. I was trying to reach my daughter, one of my daughters. She had been preventing me access to the children, wasn't letting me speak to them, and the court was basically emboldening her. Anyway, this forward text message was basically like a retaliatory prosecution. They spent 14 months or so prosecuting me. I think I had like 12 hearings. They also accused me of being a sovereign citizen. The judge actually multiple times tried to suggest that I was the things that I was filing connected me with the sovereign citizen movement, and that basically I'm a terrorist. And I called him out on it, and I actually got him to recuse off the case. But 3 judges later, they basically affirmed my conviction, and were going to give me 6 months of jail time. But in the end, they gave me 2 years of supervised probation with a domestic violence classification. Took away my Second Amendment rights to bear arms. I'll never be able to own a gun again in Colorado. And now I'm considered a domestic violence perpetrator, despite the fact that my now ex-spouse was arrested for attacking me twice physically. And so they basically have ignored all of my calls for assistance, from the legislature to the governor's office to the judicial branch. Every avenue has been shut in my face, and they basically have been retaliating against me, taking away my driver's license, taking away my ability to travel. They've leaned all my bank accounts. I'm homeless now. I've lost my home, my job, my life, my entire life.
Wow. I mean, it's what's crazy is that I know a gentleman by the name of Michael McDonald who, for sending a gift to his own children, did 6 months in jail, and then that got extended to 3.5 years. And what's also interesting is that I was recently falsely accused of going to a Coachella Trump rally to assassinate the former president. That's what I was accused of. That quickly turned out to be completely false, despite this sheriff going in front of the international stage and saying, a day after the FBI and Secret Service said that it's not true, going on stage and telling the entire world that I'm a lunatic, I'm a sovereign citizen, I'm anti-government, I was there to assassinate the former president, and that he, if it wasn't for his deputies, something very bad would have happened. All that's now proven to be untrue. But what's interesting is that he called me a sovereign citizen. And looking up at what sovereign citizen is, having interviewed a lot of individuals about this topic, I've been on the record for the last 3 years saying that this is a nonsensical concept because the terminology on its own doesn't make any sense. Yet they try to make me out to be this sovereign citizen, which is what I'm hearing about you in terms of what they tried to dub you as. Could you tell us a little bit more as to why you think they're doing these sort of things? Why you're a rabbi? You're clearly, I mean, have you ever been accused of domestic violence, or have you ever been charged with domestic violence?
No. In fact, I don't have any criminal record.
Mm-hmm.
I'm squeaky clean as far as that goes. And in fact, when they arrested me, when they came to my home and arrested me, I basically I was forced to go to a bond hearing, and the judge basically. The judge basically was saying, because of the types of things that I'm filing, when I've learned a lot about the law, and so when they don't have jurisdiction, when fraud enters into something, it vitiates everything else that enters into it later. And anyway, there was perjury involved, and all kinds of misconduct, and in court, he consistently kept on calling me a sovereign citizen, and I basically called him out and said, I'm not a sovereign citizen. All I am is a loving father, a victim, a witness, and a whistleblower. And I just kept repeating that. And I think they've basically retaliated against me because I I'm a little smarter maybe than the average Joe in some respects, or at least I have a little more stamina to try to keep going despite everything they've done to destroy my life and destroy my family. And so I keep calling out their corruption. I keep calling out the constitutional violations, and they don't like it. They don't want to hear that, and they all protect each other. So I think that's why in the end I was retaliated against.
Now tell me, what kind of retaliation? What are you facing right now? Simply, it sounds like you're telling the truth, but we hear this over and over again. They don't want to hear about the Constitution. They're operating under maritime law. If you look behind the scenes, and this is where they start calling you sovereign citizen when you find certain truths about how the system works, that everybody has a monetary value via bonds, by running you through the court, keeping you there as long as possible. Everybody's making money behind the scenes off of your suffering. The truth does not matter. Tell me some of the things that they've put you through and what they're trying to do currently in order to try to shut you down.
Well, I'll give you an example. This is a very important one. About 3 or so years ago, it was about 2 years into the case, or a year and a half or so into the case, they had put our family through all kinds of hearings, all these fraudulent restrictions against me, against my time to see with to be with my children. And I had collected all kinds of evidence and I had transcripts made and all kinds of evidence that I was prepared for a full day hearing on November 15th with the judge who ended up leaving his position about a year, 2 years later, I think. But I basically I was ready to leave there with the children. I was ready, I was ready to prove my case and show how this was all a fraud. And the judge basically retaliated and said, because he found one small sentence in this, 25-page joint trial management certificate where I made a reference to the fact that I had grounds for a Chapter 1983 federal lawsuit. And so he tried to set me up by getting us on the record to start with. And then he says, well, what did you mean by this small little footnote over here that discussed, I think you're trying to influence me. I have to consider my options. And so he and I'm now going to refer this to the sheriff's office. So he referred it to the sheriff's office, shut down the entire hearing. I had 12 witnesses under subpoena ready to testify. 2 expert doctors, 2 law enforcement officials, 2 of my older children were in court, personally, physically present, ready to testify. I had a number of other rabbis, everyone, a number of people on WebEx waiting to testify. And I had about binders that were like this thick of evidence and exhibits that I was going to enter into the record. Well, they shut me down. Anyway, that's one example. And as far as there's so many things I could tell you, but I'll just give you another example here recently with my federal lawsuits. I've seen so much corruption in every level of the court system and every level of the government. In my federal lawsuits, suing the state of Colorado and the chief justice and the chief judges and so forth, they basically dismiss my cases on fraudulent grounds. They say they make statements about how I was requesting certain things that I wasn't, and they just lie. I could point it out if I had those cases in front of me, but basically they're saying that I was asking for adjudication of state court matters in the federal court, which I wasn't. I was suing them in their individual capacities, but they basically just kicked out my cases, and now those are under appeal. I'm just thinking on the fly here, what else I could share with you. There's just hundreds of things that have happened in my case.
So they use these technicalities. I mean, they're obviously avoiding the fraud issue, which fraud basically makes anything that comes after it illegitimate. But they're avoiding the main criminal issues, and they're trying to get you on some technicalities, which is, before you answer that question, I mean, Michael McDonald again, this gentleman that if you look him up online, they make him out to be a monster, right? In the case of Michael McDonald, after spending 6 months in jail for sending a gift to his own child, which they said was a breach of court orders, then they gave him another 3 years for forging a document. And lo and behold, when you actually research what happens there was a therapist that forgot to include a note. He actually got the okay of the therapist to include that note by the therapist actually saying, you know what, I forgot to include it. It's fine if you include it. He added it on the actual assessment and then had to do 3 years in jail for quote unquote forging a document, which by the way, they called burglary as well. It's interesting how they stretched the law in order to prosecute people when the inherent truth was that this was a honest oversight by the therapist. The therapist said you could include it, Michael. He included it, did another 3 years in jail, 3.5 years total of this man's life and reputation ruined, and he'll never get it back because the internet's forever. Tell us about your experiences.
So I also was prosecuted or persecuted for dropping presents off at my ex-wife's house. Actually, one of the reasons how she got a fraudulent protection order was she claimed that I was trespassing. I actually sent with a delivery driver. I didn't go to her house personally, but I sent some of the kids' personal effects, and they tried to suggest, and birthdays. I had 3 birthdays all in June, all at the same time, and so I sent them birthday presents. And basically, I'm so scary and I'm so vicious, apparently, that they needed to get a protection order against me. But as far as the when they actually arrested me, can you imagine this? I have no criminal history, no criminal record. I asked for a personal recognizance bond to get out of jail, and they denied me. And the district attorney's office tried getting me to have to pay $5,000 bond or stay in jail. In the end, I paid $2,000 to get out of jail for a $2,000 bond, and in the same courts, I'm seeing that people have felonies, 2, 3, 4 felonies, and they're giving them personal recognizance bonds to get out. Whereas me, they wanted me to try to continue to stay in jail for however unspecified amount of time. As far as when you bring up these issues of jurisdiction or void orders or things of that nature, they don't want to address it. So I challenged jurisdiction. I told them many times. I provided numerous affidavits that were never refuted. Oftentimes they just completely just ignore and just completely move forward and plow forward and railroad you. They don't care what the facts are. They don't care what the evidence is. They basically, have now completed their color of law plan to kidnap the children from me and to ruin my life and label me the sovereign citizen, like you said earlier, of them. It's basically it's like how can you be sovereign if you're a citizen? If you're a citizen, there's no sovereignty. It's just a way to label people as domestic terrorists, people they don't like, and people that speak up about corruption or speak up about constitutional rights violations against them and so forth. And I could talk about this for days. I have so many examples and evidence in my case.
I'm going to expose something that I haven't really talked about a lot, since my life's basically been exposed pretty much down to every single idea where I've lived, where I'm from, the work that I do. I think the time is ripe right now that I actually went through something very similar that you've gone through, sir. And my experience, and there's a long story as to why it ended up this way, occurred in the United Kingdom and Canada. And what happened there is a lot of the same things that the tricks they played on you. If this was a normal court of justice as opposed to a crime syndicate, which I believe the family law courts are, and so are other branches of our courts, although not as bad as family law. Family law is pretty much the worst. I mean, firstly, that statement I just made, I would love for you to react to that based upon your knowledge before I expose what I'm about to expose.
Family law is basically there's no family in the law. I mean, basically, family law is just there to align the pockets of the judges and the attorneys and the attorneys in black robes. They talk about the best interests of children. Unfortunately, it's the best interests of the state, and the state is their master. Whether it's the judges or the court officers, the attorneys involved, they're all basically there to uphold what the state wants, and the state basically wants the additional clientele for their mental health programs, their social welfare programs, and so forth. And nobody talked about constitutional rights in the first year when I first hired an attorney. Like I thought the system in the United States was a just system 5 years ago or 6 years ago. I thought for sure if I just paid my attorney and everything will come out correctly in the end. But it's called a circus, kangaroo court for a reason. They don't follow the law. They don't follow any of the actual civil procedure. I'll give you an example real fast. I filed a Rule 60B motion. I followed all the civil procedure correctly. And when the attorney was not able to refute the 12 frauds upon the court and the 11 or 12 or 13 violations or deprivations of rights, which then automatically nullified the proceedings, I filed immediately afterwards. He didn't deny a single one of my averments in my motion. I filed a reply and basically demanded the due relief that I was required because, according to the 10th Circuit precedents and according to the civil procedure, when there's fraud upon the court or when there's deprivations of rights, and you invoke the Rule 60B civil procedure, then relief is mandatory, not discretionary. And so, unfortunately, though, rather than give me the relief I was due, and I thought, oh, this is going to be the one. They had some new judge come on, and not only deny my demand for due relief that I was required as a default judgment, they actually struck my original motion from the record, even though we had already gone through the whole process, and claimed that I have to go through the appeals process, which I had already been going through. And so basically what I'm saying is they don't follow the law. When it comes to, for example, a motion to compel, it says that they have to provide, they shall give you fees on a motion to compel. Well, in the end, they didn't give me fees. I had to compel my ex-spouse, the other, the opposing parties, to provide documents and information. When it comes to violations of parenting time, I did the same thing. They were required to provide the fees. Well, the judge completely ignored the rules and the laws and just does whatever he wants and whoever he wants to please. The attorney in this case that I was dealing with, that was representing my now ex-spouse, was this Andrew Newton Hart from Radif and Hart law firm. But he basically he was the president of the bar association of the local district, where the new judge wanted to get in good favor with the local bar association. So he was basically doing everything that the attorney asked him to do. He would even ask him in court and say, "Mr. Hart, what do you think I should do?" And I would say, "Your Honor, how is this possible? This is your court. Why are you asking the attorney what you should do? You need to follow the law." And it's just, the family law racket. It's a cottage industry, and it's very sad. I could provide all kinds of evidence and proof of so many things that have happened in my case.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, would you agree that the bar is an unlawful monopoly, not having to do anything with, justice, but really kind of like a secret club where they're all trying to climb up the ladder? I mean, what's your opinion as to how our legal industry is structured right now?
Well, I call it the corrupt legal system. It's a legal system. What's lawful is not legal, and what's legal is not lawful. And unfortunately, the legal system is a totally corrupt system. The bar associations are completely complicit in these crimes that are happening against families. They all protect each other. I've sent letters and tried contacting the Colorado Bar Association, the American Bar Association, the Federal Bar Association, and nobody will respond. Nobody will do anything. But yet, for example, in my case, the magistrate and the judge that were involved in my cases are on their various boards with the same attorneys who are opposing counsel, trying to to win a case that there's no winner, no one wins. There's no winners in the family law court, and so forth. But the bar associations don't. They're probably the biggest problem in our entire nation right now. It's one of the they have control over all the contracts, over all the language, over whether it's family law or probate law or criminal law, all these things, and they're just there to line their pockets and churn cases and basically transfer wealth from the generational wealth from average, unsuspecting, innocent, law-abiding Americans, freedom-loving Americans.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just to complete my story, because there's so many parallels here. Very much like you, I actually asked for a divorce from my ex. Following this, she actually kidnapped the children, took them to England, where she's from. I was successful in bringing them back. And the nightmare really started the moment she kidnapped the children. I'm going to kind of cut through a lot of the details, but the long and short is very much like you. I proved without a shadow of a doubt that this individual, my ex, committed multiple acts of fraud within the court, including hiring actors and having them pretend to be social workers, and then that false testimony based on fraud submitted to the court. I submitted all this stuff to the court showing that really what had happened was criminal by the other side. And what happened as a result is I was the one punished, and how they punished me. And this is where it gets interesting, because this last few weeks, due to these false accusations, my history and past has been gone through with a fine-tooth comb by so-called investigators. And the one blemish that they've discovered is that I went through a divorce where I was accused of it being a cyberbully, right? And when you actually research what that means, I was making documentaries to expose essentially criminals in their robes that they call themselves judges, basically exposing the crime of these kind of individuals, right? Instead of saying, hey, you got freedom of speech, you're in America, you're making documentary films, and you have, freedom of press, what they said I'm a cyberbully in a court that I was not even invited to, meaning no due process. So they went off in this court in Canada. I was not even aware it was happening, deemed that I'm a cyberbully, and that cyberbullying is equal to child abuse, because lo and behold, the children might one day see the documentaries I make about judges being corrupt in the family law world. And then they publish this, right? The reason why this is an important thing to mention is because out of my entire history, this is the one blemish that people have been able to find and use to justify what happened in Coachella, which was another false accusation. What I don't think these people realize is that when I went through that first major false accusation in my life, that I was a cyberbully, and that, essentially things stemming from this family court that then the Canadian government published internationally in 2019, that gave me a little bit of PTSD. And so when I encountered this situation with the Sheriff Bianco saying similar lies that were aimed to be destructive, pretty much it was no holds barred at that point. I started releasing all the evidence that showed him to be a liar. Essentially had a group of 200 patriots that know me very well, knew that I'm not what this Sheriff Bianco was lying and saying that I was, and they came to my rescue and literally turned the tide of the entire mainstream media to make sure that the truth is revealed. I mean, I'm sure, and you're not part of the groups that I'm part of, but you're not talking to a potential assassin right now, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that's because 200 patriots decided to hold strong. People that I love dearly, I wasn't even expecting this kind of help, and to tell the world that this is all untrue. And guess what? Our little group of patriots with our podcast literally overturned the immense tide of the mainstream media. And so there's a little bit of good news there. And the good news is that this fake news, this industrial complex of the media that often supports our courts, the lies that our courts do, the corruption of our courts, now doesn't seem to have the teeth that they once had, because, you know, it's like the boy who cried wolf. You keep lying, people are going to catch on to you. Now, you went through something similar in that, you know, when you went to the media and said, hey, I need to expose this stuff. This is, you know, judges being corrupt. It's politicians being corrupt. What kind of response did you get from the mainstream media?
Silence, pretty much, or not just silence, but I had one reporter from the Denver Gazette, I believe, who's a famous reporter, who told me he was going to cover my case, and he gave me all kinds of promises, but that he wanted this certain information about a certain person he was doing a story on, and I didn't think anything of it, so I shared with him my information, and then he turns around and does a hit piece on this person. I won't say who it is, but turns around and does a hit piece on this person. And they basically also recently, for example, I sent out regular press releases on judicial corruption, and I sent out one recently concerning the Commission on Judicial Discipline and the new executive director who was hired there, Ann Mangiardi, and I called for her resignation because of the egregious nature of what she did, and and how they're ignoring my complaints and how they're sweeping them under the rug. Well, one of the Colorado politic media outlets, who also had promised me to do some coverage, they basically did a puff piece on Ann Mangiardi like 2 weeks later, because to try to, I think, to stem the tide of the news I was trying to get out there, because I have, you know, a list of about 300 or 400 people I send out, you know, 70, 80 news agencies, but basically silence, though, Vem. Nobody wants to cover this. Nobody wants to touch it with a 10-foot pole. They know that there is such corruption going on, but they do things to try to make appearances in the public. I'll give you a quick example. Amendment H in Colorado is an amendment to change the way the judicial discipline system works. Well, it's a complete fabrication of reality. It's actually going to give judges more opportunity to have private proceedings and to not get disciplined, when we already have a 99% non-disciplinary rate. Nobody's ever disciplined, yet there's a lot of scandals going on in Colorado. There was recently a whistleblower complaint that was sent out based on this quid pro quo contract sex discrimination lawsuit that's been in the news for the last few years. Anyway, they're very selective on how they cover things, and then you have and then they pretend, oh yeah, we're fixing the problem with this Amendment H, but the problem is Amendment H, it makes it worse, doesn't fix it. And then the media just continues to promote this idea that, oh, it's fixing the problem, or it's you know, this is what resulted from the, you know, although nobody was prosecuted because they run out the statute of limitations, but they claim that this is going to be a fix. But the media is complicit. They don't cover average stories, or not average, so they don't cover stories, real stories of average people who are being persecuted by the system, and who are being victimized and abused. I mean, I and my children are the victims, and I've invoked the Crime Victims' Rights Act, and nobody will do anything.
It's interesting because the two very tragic false accusations I've had to deal with. One was the lies of my ex-wife and her family, very wealthy, that, like I said, I could prove that they ran a criminal operation in order to kidnap these children, right? But instead of holding them accountable, I was going to the BBC at the time, because a lot of this crime was happening in the United Kingdom, and I was told that there's actual fines and penalties for reporters in the United Kingdom to show family law corruption. That it's been set up. It's not unofficial like it is over here, because here they're just covering up for what is their unified industrial complex. Over there, they actually punish the truth from coming out. So you're not even allowed to talk about what's happening in the family law world in the United Kingdom. That's what's insane about this. And for people that don't know, I mean, this is an $80 billion plus industry, which tells you a lot about why truth, justice, facts, they don't matter in this industry. I mean, what do you know about the kind of money that these folks are printing by destroying lives and attacking Americans? By the way, mostly fathers, because 90% of the time it's a father that's alienated in these equations.
Well, I mean, look, in my case, after the divorce, I was paying alimony, about $1,500 a month for 7 years or so during that time period, or 7, 8 years. And I should have never been separated from the children. I won my appeal that said I shouldn't have been separated, but they wouldn't give me the children back. And they would say, oh, now you have to go back and file more court cases and reevaluate the situation. But the goal all along, in addition to the sick ideological separation of families and all the things that they're doing from an ideological perspective, anti-God, anti-family, anti-life. But they also have the Title 4D funds, the matching funds, all the money that's coming in to support their situation. So all of a sudden, right when I was winning my appeal, or I got my appeal, the opinion that I won my appeal, they filed a motion to hit me up for back child support, and now they've stolen all the money from the sale of my house. They've probably taken, I don't know, $200,000-$300,000 out of my my prior work checks, and through tax offsets, and through liens, and through all kinds of methodology, where I basically have become penniless now. But they claim that I owe $100,000, nearly $100,000, into the system for what? For basically for their coffers, to basically for them to enrich themselves, and to enrich and to assist their master, the state, and all for a paycheck. Most of these government officials just simply do this for a paycheck, and it's very sad.
Wow, wow. One of the other things I noticed in these two occasions where false accusations nearly destroyed my life. By the way, for the record, I haven't seen my kids in 7 years. And the reason I haven't seen them in 7 years is because my documentary work was deemed as cyberbullying. They said that should the children ever see the documentaries I've done, they'll be traumatized. Hence, it's child abuse. That's how they established it, because they couldn't get me on anything real. In fact, it was proven in court that the only individuals that actually physically assault the children are actually my ex and her mother. That is actually rock solid proof. But then they made cyberbullying into the crime. And obviously, part of that is similar things that you're talking about, where they try to financially destroy you because you're actually telling the truth. Now, you're saying that you're literally homeless because of this?
Yes, they made me homeless. Yes, I lost my house. After the divorce, so I was paying all the money, and I was keeping my mouth shut. I was just paying her, even though she was living with another man, and I don't think I should have to pay alimony or maintenance payments if she's living with another man, traveling the country, traveling the world, actually going on 20 vacations a year. Cuba, Hawaii, Costa Rica. I mean, I've got all the discovery. It shows that she was on all these vacations and living in a mansion, claiming that she's renting an apartment or renting the downstairs. But after having to spend over $200,000 the first year and a half defending against a completely baseless motion to modify custody of one child out of the 6 I was taking care of, it cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars over the next total of maybe 3 years between my appeals and everything else, and then I started representing myself. But they basically did an income withholding on my checks. They were taking over 50% of my paychecks. They were, they took any proceeds from the sale of my home. I couldn't upkeep the home anymore, because they were basically taking over half of my paycheck and now I just, the home I had bought in order to provide for the children um, was empty. I was living in an empty home for 2 years practically. I ended up having to rent part of it for a short time, but it just hit after hit after hit. They would lien my bank accounts. I had just enough money to pay the rent. All of a sudden, my bank account got liened, and boom, they took $3,000 out of my bank account, and I couldn't pay the mortgage. Um, I mean, there's been so many ways that they have tried to hit me with financial sanctions. They put again liens on my home. They've basically suspended my driver's license. They I can't operate normally in this regular economy. Today I can't have a bank account. I don't have a driver's license. I don't have anything. I can't even. I can't. I can barely. Yeah, I can barely survive in the current financial system that they have. So it's made me homeless, and it's just me and our family dog Luna Bear that that's left here. I'm still trying.
So,
I'm still fighting the system, so to speak, if you want to say fight. I'm not a violent person, but I have 4 appellate briefs due in the next 5 weeks. I just filed a petition for writ of certiorari in this fake criminal case, and I just keep going to do the best I can. I have a little bit of I have some friends that help me a little bit, but yes, I've basically been completely financially destroyed.
So I'm gonna just one other statement I'm gonna make, and then I'm gonna ask you a quick question. So in both these terrible experiences that I went through, first with losing my children based upon complete lies, even though the fraud was clearly being committed by the other side, and then more recently being accused of being a potential Trump assassin on the international stage, right? Both times I contacted the FBI. In the instance of the corruption that happened in the United Kingdom and Canada, part of that corruption was my passport, my US passport, trying to be unlawfully seized by an anti American Canadian judge that made very disparaging statements about our president at the time, which was Donald Trump, and literally used that as an excuse to allow the kidnapping and trafficking of my children, that I would not let her seize my passports. And so I let the FBI know, thinking, wow, the FBI is supposed to protect these American citizens. These kids were born and raised in the United States. And really what I got back is crickets, right? They provided no help whatsoever. They told me I should hire a lawyer to go deal with this calamity, which is an international calamity. You would think that our federal authorities would care that U.S. citizens, rights are being so grossly violated, which are myself and the 2 children, right? More recently, I let the FBI know about Sheriff Bianco and what he had done, the false accusations, which came a day after the FBI and Secret Service said that this guy is not an assassin, this is a nothing burger. But the next day, this Sheriff Bianco gets on the world stage, accuses me of being a Trump assassin, says I'm a lunatic, calls me anti-government, sovereign citizen, all these crazy things. And obviously you could imagine that has irreparable consequences, because you can't even search my name now in terms of me getting a job, a lease, anything that I put my name on. All of a sudden, I have literally zero ability to conduct a life under my name, Vem Miller, right? And once again, I let the FBI know, and they tell me, hey, hire a civil attorney, which again, you would think that a official, when they go and they say lies, and there's actual laws about this, that an official saying lies on the public stage, and it was determined that I did not plan to do any of the heinous acts that I was being accused of, you would think that the FBI would step in and really do what is right by the law. But that's not what happened again. Again, what happened was I was told, hire a civil attorney, when this is felonious crimes that are happening via this sheriff, right? What is going on there? What is going on there that our federal authorities that are supposed to protect the American people, the FBI being literal federal for our nation does not seem to want to help us and tells us, hey, go find a civil attorney to go fight what is ultimately a very expensive battle, a battle that not many of us could afford unless you have a lot of independent wealth.
I think they've somehow taken over the criminal justice system, where we now no longer have citizen special grand juries that we can actually access. I've tried getting assistance from the FBI. I've tried getting assistance from the CBI, from every law enforcement agent I could think of, from my local corrupt sheriff in my prior, when I was living in the mountains, in my home that was forced to be sold, Sheriff Armstrong. Sheriff Norton in Elbert County, Sheriff Armstrong's in Gilpin County. But I encourage anyone who wants to learn about my story. I've written my own criminal complaints, seven state and federal criminal complaints that outline probable cause, follows all the law enforcement standards, and all I was asking for was an investigation. And they won't even open an investigation or provide me or assign me a case number. And the thing that people always hear in family court is, oh, it's a civil matter. It's a civil matter. Unfortunately, it's not a civil matter. I've learned a lot about the law in the last few years. I've studied. It took me 10 years to study and get my rabbinical ordination. Over 10 years, extreme amount of studying. Well, I've studied the last 5 years probably just as hard to learn about my rights and learn about the criminal justice system, the family courts, our constitutional rights. But I've contacted the FBI numerous times on various criminal felony crimes, and they won't do anything. Even when it's completely in broad daylight. A quick example: I filed a federal removal action to federal court, and according to the statute, the rules, that the state court then is divested of all jurisdiction. Well, the judge proceeded forward and even wrote in one of his orders that I don't recognize the federal court's jurisdiction, and in black letter violation of federal law and against my rights. And I submitted complaints to all these agencies, the CBI, the FBI. Nobody will do anything. I think everyone knows that it's such a major, wide sweeping problem throughout the entire United States and across the world, but and they just allow it to happen because to try to do otherwise would create open the floodgates for prosecution against all these government officials who are all basically committing treason and are traitors to this country.
Wow, powerful. So, all right, is it accurate that when you start knowing your rights, like grand juries and really that this is criminal, that these criminals are really not taking care of criminal business, hence makes them criminal complicit, like you said, treason to our Constitution and original law? Is that when they start calling you things like sovereign citizen? Is that accurate?
Yeah, in fact, I think the reason why one of the judges originally kept on spouting off that I'm a sovereign citizen is because I filed a criminal complaint against him. Not just a judicial complaint, but a criminal complaint. And in the criminal complaint, I outline all the various crimes that I believe were committed. And treason is one of them. But he joked and laughed at me. He said, I don't think I've ever been accused of treason before, with the penalty of death. Well, I didn't suggest that he should be penalized with death. I just wrote down, here's the statute, here's what it says, here's what you've done, here's and I'm very detail oriented. I'm a very legitimate, loving father, a victim, a witness, a whistleblower, and nobody wants to be accused of that. But yes, that's part of the reason. Anytime you use the word treason, or you actually you call balls and strikes, this is what it is. I'm sorry to say, but if you don't like it, then don't commit treason. Don't do things when you an act outside of jurisdiction. Or there's several case precedents for this, but Virginia versus Cohen's or I can't think of it off the top of my head right now, but that's a very a well-known one, and they try to label you as an extremist or domestic terrorist, but I told him, no, I'm just a loving father, but look, you're breaking the law. You need to, you need to stop breaking the law. You need to protect my rights. I'm a crime victim, and so are my children. And they don't like it when you become educated and know your rights, and when you know the law, when you follow the law, um, because their legal system is so corrupt. They don't follow the law. They follow their legal system. Again, what I said earlier, what's legal is not lawful, and what's lawful is not legal. It's completely different. But we are law-abiding citizens, and I've always been a law-abiding citizen, and unfortunately, I've been persecuted for for speaking up and standing up for my rights and standing up for my children. And I think any parent, any father, any mother who has experienced anything like this, it's not exceptional. We should all do it. It's something that we all need to do. We need to stand up for the truth and justice, and we need to speak up and hold people who are in public office accountable when they commit crimes against you.
Yeah, yeah. And by the way, for the viewers out there, you're now learning. I've always said there's three reasons why I started the America Happens Network: to get uncensored media out. Now you're learning about one of those three reasons that I haven't disclosed yet, because I went through this nonsense. I saw how the feds, the media could care less. They're working together to cover up this criminal conglomerate and save their $80 billion plus that is built in income, that is built by destroying families, destroying children, alienating children. This is one of the reasons why we have invested so much time and energy into the America Happens Network, because CNN, Fox, BBC, pretty much any of the mainstream media won't cover a story like this because they're all in cahoots with one another. Tell me now, there's a AG over there in Colorado named Jenna Griswold who's been very good about prosecuting Tina Peters, who's been on this network. Tina most recently got convicted for 9 years in jail because I don't even understand what she did. She exposed the cover up that was happening with these voting machines. I don't even understand it. But this old lady that is now 70 years old, and I don't want to call her old, elderly lady, mature lady, is now going to spend up to age 80 in prison, thanks to, seems like, a lot of Jenna Griswold's work. How has Jenna Griswold treated you when you've gone to her with these facts as the Attorney General and somebody that should uphold the law, somebody that should not have conflict of interest? What has been her response regarding these crimes?
So actually, Jenna Griswold is the Secretary of State, and she's the one that's responsible for election integrity and for driver's licensing and things like that. Attorney General in Colorado is Attorney General Philip Weiser, and Philip Weiser is actually named in my fifth criminal complaint. Him and the Deputy Attorney General, because of their failure to do their duties and do their jobs. But Attorney General Weiser's office is basically a black hole. Nobody is allowed to go there. When you call their office, nobody ever returns your phone call. They claim that you can file file complaints on fraud, file complaints on various things. Instead, he's basically just concerned with advancing various lawsuits against grocery store mergers and things related to his liberal agenda. He's an extremely liberal attorney general, and him and his office are basically a black hole. I've tried calling hundreds of times. I encourage anyone who wants to learn more about my case to actually read my criminal complaint, where him and the deputy attorney general listed as crime suspects, and why I included them and all the evidence I have on that. But it's quite shocking to me that Jenna Griswold just this week had admitted that there were leaks on the BIOS passwords for the election system for Colorado. And when she was asked whether or not she would resign, there was actually a very good reporter who did an interview with her. When asked if she would resign, she said no, absolutely not. But yet here they prosecute this wonderful woman, Tina Peters, for preserving election data, and instead they try to use it as a way to promote themselves as if they're promoting election integrity. In fact, I see all these advertisements that Colorado says they have the gold standard of election integrity here in Colorado, and unfortunately, that's not the case. And the system, from the governor to the attorney general to the sheriffs to the district attorneys to the Colorado Bureau of Investigation to the legislature, I've gone to every single level of government and every government office and had the door slammed in my face. No one will do anything, and except when it comes to their agenda to prosecute someone like Tina Peters. It's very, very sad.
Wow, wow. All right. So I'm going to ask you another question that I'm curious to hear your response to. So, I'm a Christian. You're a Jew, right? As a Christian, I look at, for example, our Holy Bible, the lineage of that, the Magna Carta, and then the Constitution, right? And then I look at this extra layer of statutory law that contradicts a lot of the freedoms that are expressed within the Constitution. And to a Christian, it seems as though that is an inversion of the word of Christ. Hence, if Christ is supposed to be holy, just, this is essentially the opposite, which would indicate evil and what a Christian would say satanic, right? Now, when I look at some of these statutory laws, certainly I feel as though this was put in place for bad reasons, nothing to do with justice and law. Now, as a Jew, I'm wondering, what is your opinion on this layer of maritime statutory law that now seems to be negating the Constitution, which obviously, as you've said, a lot of people are fine with ignoring and, in fact, persecuting you and calling you names like sovereign citizen the minute you mention such a thing as the Constitution?
Well, we have a very convoluted system that a lot of people just simply aren't educated about or aware about. I mean, they've taken out learning about the Constitution in public schools, or I know back in my day, I wasn't always religious, but I went to a public school when I was younger, and I had to take an actual test on the Constitution. But nowadays, like you said earlier, I think what you were alluding to is these the Cestic UV trust accounts or whatever it is that the government is doing to basically monetize us like we're just cattle. And my first and foremost what I subscribe to is basically God's law. I what I what I what I believe does not necessarily coincide with the government. And unfortunately, even in my marriage, the marriage is a sacred institution, sacred contract and covenant between man, wife, and God. And the state is basically taking God out of everything. And there's no more truth based on godly or conservative or traditional family values, and it's very, very sad. I think it's an agenda. It's an ideological agenda that's happening in our society. But I've been forced into this before I was wrangled into the civil courts and in the criminal courts. I gave my now ex-spouse and I, we got a Jewish divorce, and but after that, they suck you into the system to make you subscribe to their beliefs, whether it's no fault divorce or whether it's abortion issues or whatever it happens to be. They force these types of things upon you because you're forced to work within the system. I mean, even with the driver's licensing, nobody understands that they have a right to just travel without having to be a publicly certified driver for like a taxi service or something. And not everybody knows that you can actually get married by just by having a few witnesses and signing your names in a Bible, in a holy Bible. But the state has basically monetized everything, has taken the society and has basically capitalized and have trades stocks and so forth on the stuff. Sorry, all I was saying was that they've basically monetized the people, and whether it's monetizing their cases, every piece of paper piece of paper you file in court is monetized. Every conviction you get, or every case that's filed, or every hearing that's held, as far as I understand, the state is basically making money off of that, and off of you, and off of your suffering. And I'm a very religious, faithful person, and I have been forced to have to deal within this corrupt system. And I hope that answered your question, but
It does. It does. Now, let me ask you this, because that's another thing. They accuse me of being a sovereign citizen because I'm not going through the DMV for things like license plate. I had private license plates, but they accuse me, and it's funny, they accuse me internationally of being a sovereign citizen when everything I had done was completely lawful. It's not according to their corrupt system, but it was lawful, and they couldn't even write that on a ticket. Like, they were fine with announcing it to the world. This guy's a sovereign citizen based upon no truth, just the fact that I don't want to go through the DMV to be able to drive, that I have a right to travel, and nothing else. By the way, they said I'm anti-government, and that's demonstrably untrue. When for the last 25 years I've supported every candidate that was to my liking, starting in 2000, and more recently ran for office, pushing for Donald Trump to become president. Obviously, I'm not anti-government when I'm actually working to get somebody in government office, right? But nonetheless, they tagged out on me. But you know what's funny? That wasn't on the ticket that they gave me. I ended up with a ticket at the end of the day. No bail, no nothing like that. That was also a lie. But on the ticket, they didn't say that, hey, your license plate was unlawful. Clearly, because if it was unlawful, they would have put it on there. But they were fine with calling me these names. So you've been victim to the same sort of thing, where it's not necessarily lawful what they're saying, but they're okay using their courts for what is really hyperbolic, emotional nonsense. It's either lawful or unlawful. But now they're introducing their own personal feelings and emotion to the equation. Is that what you're saying?
Oh yeah. I mean, I told that judge when he said that I was a sovereign citizen in multiple ways, or he kind of made reference to it, and I said, Your Honor, I said, Judge, I stopped calling him Your Honor actually after a while, but I said, Judge, you just prejudiced my case. You have to recuse yourself right now. And so we spent the next hour arguing about whether or not he had to recuse himself, and then finally in the end he recused himself. But I explained to him. I said, "Look, I'm just an average person. I'm a father, a rabbi, a victim, a witness, and a whistleblower. I'm not a sovereign citizen or whatever it is you're saying that I am. Just because I know my rights and I'm filing documents regarding fraud upon the court, or void orders, or things that relate to perjury and so forth. I mean, the fact that we're spending time in the court based on a forward text that was unlawfully the protection order was unlawfully obtained based on perjury and fraud, and it was proven, and I provided them evidence, and I provided them all this information, but because I filed criminal complaints, or because I filed complaints against them, they basically retaliate and try to label you as something that is sounds like the boogeyman. Oh my gosh, you're a domestic terrorist. If you're a sovereign citizen, that associates you with a really bad crowd of people. Well, no, I'm just a halfway intelligent man who has learned his rights, who has studied, who has who's trying to follow the law, and who has always followed the law. And you're not. So you need to follow the law, but they just try to call you names and label you things and retaliate against you. It's a very common tactic and practice in the court system and among public officials as well.
Let me ask you this. Like, you and I understand the system now, right? We understand this corrupt little system that they've built. Who in their logical mind would not want to be sovereign from a criminal syndicate, which is what you're describing? Why wouldn't somebody want to be sovereign from criminality, especially somebody like you that's a rabbi, and especially somebody like me that's devoted my life to following in the footsteps of Christ, realizing that this is an inversion of the word of God. And like I said, if it's an inversion of the holy, that means it's unholy. Hence and therefore, as an individual, I shouldn't be forced into unholy endeavors, So why wouldn't somebody want to get sovereign from a criminal syndicate like that?
You make a very good point, Vem. Unfortunately, the system is designed in a way that you can't call it a criminal syndicate, or you can't you can't take these people to task, these government officials, without consequences, and everyone seems to be forced to have to operate within the confines of the current system we have. Unfortunately, they don't follow the supreme law of the land, the Constitution, and they seem to get away with pardon the expression, with murder. And have no one to hold them accountable. And so I don't. I mean, of course, I would. I'm a God-fearing man, and I only answer to God above. Unfortunately, we are required to live in the system and operate within the system. And as much as you and I might believe that it's a criminal syndicate, some of these operations that they have, without having an upswell of hundreds of thousands of citizens demanding a change in the system, or bringing RICO lawsuits or federal lawsuits or whatever it is, they're just going to be able to keep on continuing to do what they're doing. I believe it's, I call it governmental racketeering. If you read my criminal complaints, I label this governmental racketeering. This is basically a RICO operation, a criminal syndicate, with the way that they. The problem is proving it and having enough evidence to do so, and that's why one of the areas I have looked into a lot is the citizen or the special grand juries, or citizen grand juries, and trying to get in front of an actual legitimate jury of some kind, whether it's in federal court or whether it's in a criminal grand jury. It's of some sort, but indictments need to be brought against those that are committing crimes against families. I mean, this is child abuse. This is a retaliation against a victim, witness, and whistleblower. There's so many statutes that have been violated and that have been that are considered crimes. And without the system to be able to have special grand juries, there's really no redress for us. For me, for example, I submitted hundreds of pages of criminal complaints, all according to law enforcement standards. Here's the statement of probable cause. Here's the statute of the crime. Here's the evidence and all the elements that meet that crime. Here's all the referenced evidence, and so on and so forth. But and they won't even open an investigation or give me a case number. They just sweep it under the rug. But yet, when my ex-spouse goes and says, "Oh my gosh, I'm scared because he dropped off a present, or with somebody else, with a driver, or he whatever it happens to be, he sent a 4-word text message, 'Have daughter call me. I'm so scared for my life. We have to put him in jail for 6 months,' or unfortunately your friend got put in jail for 3 years for a simple misunderstanding or whatever. It wasn't, it's very, very sad that our system is the way it is. But we do have to work for the moment within it, and but of course I would want to be sovereign. I'm sovereign to God Almighty, and that's it in terms of where my loyalty lies and what I have to do as a God-fearing, honest person.
Yeah, completely. This has been, frankly, one of the most fascinating episodes we've done, because you're a rabbi, you're a man of God. It's clear that you're not a child abuser. Nonetheless, that's really the only reason why a father shouldn't see their children, is that they're not abusive. In my case, they made my work abuse, meaning if I make documentaries. And by the way, the latest on that is that I've been told, unless I admit that what I did in creating documentaries is child abuse. They won't even let me see the children. So that is now a kidnapping, trafficking operation via state. The criminals aren't going to hold themselves accountable, just like the criminals aren't going to hold themselves accountable in your case. And you would expect like the FBI to step in and take care of business, but that doesn't seem to be what they're interested in. Certainly, my experiences in the last 9 years shows that the FBI could care less that crimes are being committed against American citizen children, including child abuse, including kidnapping and trafficking, including gross violations of our First Amendment, where my own speech is now being criminalized, according to the United Kingdom and Canada. But they're cool with that, because anything other than that would expose the fact that that same criminal syndicate in the United Kingdom and Canada is also here. And by the way, a lot of this stems from British law. That's why we have a similar system here, because it comes from the bar. The bar is the British Accreditation Registry. And it seems as though these lawyers and politicians are beholden to the bar as opposed to beholden to the Constitution. Is there anything you want to say, sir, in closing before we wrap up this episode?
I just want to say thank you, Vem, and the America Happens Network for having me on, and thank you to the various supporters who reach out to me, in the middle of the night or occasionally when I'm feeling down. And it's just nice. It's nice to know that there are other. I hate to say it in this way, not other victims of injustice, but other decent people that care about you, that know what you're going through. They try to label you as crazy. They try to label you as angry. They try to label you as a sovereign citizen or as whatever it happens to be. But just anyone who's out there who's dealing with these kinds of things, just remember, it's not you. It's really it's gaslighting. It's the system that is attempting to create this new narrative. And I know the truth. You know the truth. My ex-wife, my ex-spouse, the people in our lives all know the truth, and the fact that we are not upholding the truth is very, very, very sad. And the fact that Vem Miller and this network is actually willing to talk about these important issues is a very, very wonderful thing, because they are part of the process of helping to uphold the truth. And so, thank you, America Happens Network, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to your viewers.
Yeah, I appreciate you, sir. I appreciate you. It's ridiculous what you've been through. And frankly, now I'm going to talk openly about what I've been through, because these are the two great crimes in my life. And it was really by virtue of having gone through the trauma of that first experience, where flat out lies and crimes were allowed in order to kidnap and traffic my children, where my children are being held hostage right now, because I won't say that my freedom of speech is a crime. Literally, that's what they were told. That's what I was told in court. So this is the criminal syndicate and you wonder why is nobody getting married anymore? Why is the new generation so scared of getting married? Could it be that such a large percentage grew up with single moms who are accusing their fathers of nonsense like what you're going through, what I've gone through, and the courts allow it rather than allowing justice? Could it be that we're dealing with an entire generation that's been traumatized by these corrupt officials operating under essentially RICO crimes that they're never persecuted or prosecuted for, yet individuals like you, for sending a gift, for writing a note to their children, are basically criminalized and threatened with jail. And now you're saying you've been reduced to homelessness. I lost my house too. I lost ungodly amounts of money. All that information's public now, by the way, because after I got accused of trying to assassinate former President Donald Trump, everybody went through my information. So everything's out there now. And this is the one blemish they've been able to find. Now you know the reason why, and why what you're saying, Rabbi, really strikes a chord within my heart. But believe me, justice is coming. We're tired of this nonsense. We're tired of these criminals ruling upon our lives, destroying American children, and not upholding the law. So justice is coming. Thank you very much, viewers out there, for watching this episode of Blood Money. I will see you all on the next episode. And please make sure you go to americahappens.com, subscribe, and follow what we do, because this kind of truth you're seeing right now, very few people are talking this kind of truth. So thank you very much. I will see you all on the next episode of Blood Money.